Hi, I'm Samira, and I'm the head of engineering at SecureBio.AI. We measure frontier AI capabilities in biology with an eye to how those might impact biological risks. And I'll be giving a talk on how to measure AI scientific capabilities that exceed those of expert humans. So as most of you are probably familiar with, AI benchmarks are a standard tool for measuring a model's or estimating a model's real-world capabilities. At SecureBio, we estimate bio capabilities using bio benchmarks. So we've developed knowledge or Q&A benchmarks. As an example here, we have the Virology Capabilities Test, which we released in 2025. And it has a lot of questions that look kind of like this. They're sort of very in-depth, detailed, practical, in-the-lab virology work scenarios that were drawn from expert PhDs who do this kind of work every day. More recently, we've been moving towards agentic benchmarks that test what a model can actually do, such as design DNA or even control a liquid handling robot in the lab. I'm not going to get into either of these in detail. This paper is actually at ICML. We'll have a poster there, or you can talk to me about it later. But a common theme amongst all these benchmarks is that human experts define the correct answers, like they write the answer key for these benchmarks, and they also take the test themselves to provide a performance baseline. But what we see recently is that models now match or exceed human experts on many of these bio benchmarks. So in this chart here on the right, each line is a single benchmark, and each data point is the model's score on that benchmark relative to human experts, which is that horizontal red line over there. So what you can see is the models that were released recently, the ones way on the right of the chart, are on all of these benchmarks are outperforming that human baseline horizontal line. And there's a question here also of like, what does it mean for a model to be outperforming human experts on a benchmark that was written by human experts? And our answer to this is that the answer key for a benchmark represents expert consensus, and models are better at predicting that consensus right now than any individual expert is. But this has also posed a bit of a challenge for measuring super expert capabilities, because if we're already at the point where models are outperforming human experts on these topics, like how do you make a benchmark that's hard enough that we will actually still be able to track capabilities as they increase and be able to measure them? And you might think that we would like go into these sort of topics that are very, very cutting edge or very niche, but in those cases there might not even be expert consensus on what the right answer is. And in that case, you don't really have an answer key. So how do we measure super expert capabilities? At SecureBio, we take two approaches here. We firstly source tasks from the leading edge of human research. And secondly, we let reality rather than experts define what the correct answer is for those tasks. So I'm going to go over two benchmarks real quick that we've developed recently that follow these principles. The first one is ReproBAIT. It is an agentic coding task involving reproducing biological AI tools that are published in literature. So biological AI tools are things like AlphaFold. They're like these narrow AI models that are trained on biological data. And the coding task involves the agent taking a paper that describes a new bio-AI model, and it basically tries to reproduce that entire result. Like it produces an AI model that replicates what is in the paper. So it extracts the methods, it builds a training pipeline, it finds the data to train the model, and its output is an AI model. So if you're familiar with Epoch's mirror code, this is similar to that. And what we find is that in our preliminary results, coding agents were actually able to replicate 3 of the 4 bio-AI models we tested. And that means they produced models that met the performance benchmark from the original paper. And they did this quite quickly and quite cheaply, like under 12 hours, often just like hundreds of dollars. So this measures expert level difficulty, but super expert capabilities in terms of speed, resources, and context. Another benchmark we've developed is Predictive Bio Bench, which asks the model to just predict results of unpublished experiments. We co-developed this with NIST. So we take the methodology from unpublished, private, or recently released results that just are not in the model's training data. And we just give the model the experimental setup or the methodology and say like, hey, if we ran this experiment, what do you think the result would be? And we've actually already, the data is already there, we've run the experiment, the model doesn't know that, but then we can just score the model's prediction against ground truth reality rather than relying on expert consensus. And in our early data, we see we have like 31 tasks. The blue ones here are ones where models are like quite outperforming the baseline we would expect. The red ones are doing a bit worse, but we see that models are pretty good at this. To summarize, as models' capabilities increase, we need a diverse panel of estimators that can stretch to super expert capabilities, which is what we're working on now. If you'd like to learn more, there are 8 of us at this workshop and at ICML, so please come talk to us.